bureaucracy, it's not just in the government. So it exists in the deep state's not just in the government, actually. That's the dirty little secret. It pervades every other sphere of our lives. I wasn't planning to mention this in my introduction, but you brought this up and it relates directly to it, right? So I posted on social media about this event, and I wanted to be constructive in the community to set a tone where your mayor and other city leaders have asked for help. I'm not in office right now, and so I want to think about as a businessman or as somebody who's lived the American dream, how can I help? I appreciate that. I tried. Thank you. And we didn't get to Ohio, so but I thinking about, this country's blessed us with so much. We've lived the American dream. I thought, okay, how can we use our resources to do what's right and help the community here? So this is a story about this trip. Just tells you about the power of bureaucracy in America. So we say, okay, maybe it's the hospital that's strained. So I call around city leaders. Hey, it's not really the hospital. It's primary care that's actually been strained the most. And there's some nonprofits working on primary care here. And so we offered a $100,000 gift to support those charitable efforts. And guess what got in the way? They turned down the gift. Bureaucracy along the way. And I think that it has something to do with I can only speculate, it has something to do with my political perspective or otherwise. But I think that the reality is we need to put that to one side and say, if we have ways to solve problems, whether it's in the VA, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's in philanthropy, just get the bureaucracy out of the way so that at least in government, the people who we elect to run the government once again run the government. And in the private sector too, the people who actually are running the show are people who actually care about solving the problem rather than looking after their own optics or appearances. And if we do that, I think we're going to save the country. So thank you.
Let's dive into this clip from Springfield, Ohio, where Vivek Ramaswamy stepped up to address the real issues the mainstream media keeps ignoring. In this forum, he speaks directly with the local residents about one of the most pressing challenges we face, illegal immigration, and how it's affecting communities across the nation. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more insightful discussions.
I voted for President Trump in 2016, 2020, and I will again on November 5th. President Trump vowed to do, quote, large deportations from Springfield, Ohio. But like you said earlier, most, if not nearly all of the immigrants here are here legally. So the notion of deporting all of them and then everything will be okay is not based in reality. So my question to you is this: what realistic plans can you, President Trump, and Congress produce for Springfield and cities like Springfield to be able to adapt and thrive for all of us, both citizens and immigrants?
I appreciate your thoughtful question. I don't agree with 100% of it, but I appreciate you identifying who you're voting for, but still are able to ask tough questions. I like that. So I'll say something here. First of all, is the most important part of your question is we can fall into a trap, and I don't want to see us fall into this, is there are real problems that we need to address in this country that actually have nothing to do with immigration as well. And I think that we can sweep a lot of that under the rug. Those are failures of our elected and increasingly unelected leaders of the country that we got to address by way of economic growth in this country, wage stagnation in this country. You think about even workforce training and preparedness for the changing economy, our reliance on China for our modern way of life. These are big issues even outside of the specific immigration and mass migration issues. So part of your point is we can't sweep all that under the rug and just blame it on immigrants. I agree with you, actually. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. How are we going to achieve mass deportations? Well, first of all, you got anybody who's committed a crime in this country, anybody who is actually currently detained. That's an easy set of deportations right out the gate. You're talking about millions of people that fit those two categories together. That alone would be the largest mass deportation in American history. The next thing you got to do is, it's like you got a clogged drain, right? What do? First thing you do is you turn off the faucet. You don't try to clean the drain while you leave the faucet on. Use our military to secure the border. Use the National Guard if necessary. Aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande. And yes, complete the construction of the wall, which is not a racist or xenophobic action. And so the way I think about it is, let's just talk about some principles we can agree on. All right, maybe if I was writing this down, we'll be a little more precise, but I'll give it to you kind of off the top here. Think about it like your body, right? Violation of your consent. A nation's body is its land. No migration without consent, number one. Number two, consent should only be granted to migrants who benefit the United States of America. And number three is, those who enter without consent shall be removed. And if anybody wants to disagree with me on that, that's fine, we can debate that, but I haven't met an American who actually disagrees with those three principles. So if we all agree on it, the country that put a man on the moon can get this job done. It's just a question of actually having the will to do it.
This is exactly the kind of conversation we should be having, but the mainstream media would rather scream racism than address the real issue, mass immigration and how we handle it. Every time Vivek Ramaswamy speaks, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Unlike most politicians, he actually gives clear, direct answers on what steps need to be taken to solve our immigration crisis. He pointed out that while we can't deport everyone at once, we can start with those already detained or in shelters. It's simple. Those who are here illegally and in custody are the first to go. That's wave one of mass deportations. Vivek also lays out exactly how to secure the border, finish the wall, and use the military. These are concrete solutions, unlike the usual vague responses we get from people like Kamala Harris, who dodge the question with empty phrases and blame Trump. Vivek didn't waste time pointing fingers. He focused on real solutions. It's crazy that I'm applauding a non-politician like Vivek, who's never held office, yet he's giving clearer answers than the politicians we have today. Plus, he's out there, on the ground, talking directly to the people and proposing real solutions. This is why the left dislikes him so much. He refuses to play the victim card, even as a so-called person of color. Instead, he talks about achieving the American dream without using race as an excuse. It's refreshing compared to successful liberals who still cry oppression despite living lives of luxury most people can only dream of. Now let's dive into Vivek calmly dismantling a guy who cries racism over the backlash in Springfield due to the migrant crisis. Let's get into it.
Yep.
What's up? You look really good in person, by the way, too, man. My name is Brock Inge. I've lived in Springfield 28 years, all my life, pretty much. Since this story leaked, and this is something that everyone needs to hear, the hateful language in this community has spiked. It's really, really bad. I'm half black, I'm half Hungarian, I'm half black, half white, whatever you want to say. I've become a target of the hate. I can probably count on my hand, both hands, how many times a racial slur has been said my whole life. I've been called the N-word twice this week by just people who group me. It happens. Even though my skin may be lighter, I think people just group us together. There's horror stories of people who are darker skinned that have been chased down by people who are white, saying, get out of this country, friends of mine, friends of friends, and say, like, get out of here, you're Haitian, we don't want you here, even with a 6-month-old baby at a grocery store. So regardless, I find it shameful and I find it inappropriate whether I'm Haitian or American. What would you say to my fellow people here in the community in regards to this rhetoric? I don't think it can be tolerated.
Tell me?
Brock.
Yeah. All right, so this is a serious question. I want to take a minute to address this. I can speak some truth here. I'm in the camp of long-standing believing that the United States of America is not a racist country and the least racist country known to mankind. I have never experienced that type of invidious racism growing up. But I also want to speak a hard truth here, because there's something going on in the country right now. When I say right now, I'm talking like the last 9 to 12 months in this country. There is a weird uptick in racial tension in this country that did not exist in the 30 years that I grew up right here in Southwest Ohio. And I'll tell you what's going on, because this gets to the essence of what's going on in this country and bothers me. Take the immigration issue. You take 20,000 people who are unprepared to integrate into a community, dump them into a city of 50,000, you're going to get a reactionary response. Then you demonize the people who have the reactionary response, who say, oh, you're blaming me. They're gonna have ill will, in this case, towards the Haitian community. On the racial point, let me mention this too, because I see this happening. There's no better way to create racism in America, anywhere, than to take something else away from someone's family because of their skin color. So whether it's a seat in college or whether it's a job or now even forms of federal aid under the likes of Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, say that you only get certain forms of aid. If you're a racial minority, if you're black or Hispanic, that actually creates more racial animus in response. And so this is what I think many people on the right sometimes miss, which is that are these anti-racist programs, are they racist against whites or Asians? They are, but actually it's not just that it's racist against whites and racist against Asians. It is literally fueling a new wave of anti-black racism in the country that otherwise would not have existed if it weren't for those woke anti-racist policies in the first place. It is divide and conquer. It's the media. The media's throwing kerosene on this. And so here's what was happening. It's like the final embers of racism were burning out in America. And then they're throwing kerosene on it all over again. It is a divide and conquer strategy. They want to divide us on ourselves. And you know who it's up to make sure they can't get away with that? It's up to us. It's up to we the people to say hell no to that vision. You will sell us this myth that we're divided. You're going to try to pit us against each other. But you know what? We the people who are citizens of the United States of America are the people who we actually elect a government to represent. And all of us are American, regardless of our race or creed, and that's what made this country great the first time around, and that's how we're going to make this country great again. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, bro. Okay.
That was a solid answer from Vivek. He could have easily taken the typical route of condemning people and calling them racist, which is what you'd expect from a Democrat. They would have assumed what the guy was saying was true without questioning it. But Vivek didn't do that. Instead, he focused on the real issue, the divisive policies being pushed by the Democratic Party. These policies are designed to create hate and division, and when people speak out against them, they're immediately labeled as racist. The truth is, it doesn't matter where these immigrants are from, whether they're black or any other background. The same situation is happening in liberal cities like Chicago and New York. But you won't see the media talking about those places. They only care about Springfield because Trump brought it up during the debate. If it weren't for his comments, they wouldn't even be discussing it. The problem is clear. Too many people were brought into a small town too quickly, causing real issues. And when residents raise concerns, they're called bigots. This is a classic tactic used to shut down opposition and force people to accept policies they disagree with. If they speak out, their character is attacked, and they're branded as racist. This strategy is used on other topics too, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. If you don't agree with their stance, you're labeled a racist. Vivek nailed it when he explained how these tactics are deliberately designed to create division because the Democratic Party thrives on it. They've been using these strategies for years. The key takeaway is this: people need to stand up, speak their truth, and demand action from their elected officials instead of being silenced by fear of being labeled a racist. Disagreeing with the Democratic Party shouldn't automatically make someone a bigot. Much of the hate and division in the country today stems from policies promoted by the Democrats, and it's intentional. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video with others.